Please be seated. Good evening. I welcome you to this budget meeting of full council at Tottenham Town Hall. This meeting is also recorded by the council for subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site. Please note that this meeting may be filmed by anyone attending the meeting using any communication method. Although we ask members of the public recording, filming, or reporting on meetings not to include the public seating areas, members of the public attending the meeting should be aware that we cannot guarantee that you will not be filmed or recorded by others attending the meeting. By entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of these images and sound recordings. As chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend filming or recording if, in my opinion, continuation of the filming, recording, or reporting would disrupt or prejudice the proceedings, infringe the rights of any individuals, or may lead to the breach of legal obligations by the council. Before starting the items, please can the Democratic Services Officer confirm with our sound and audio engineer that there are no issues with the streaming of this meeting so far and is available to the public.
There are no issues, Chair.
Thank you. I wanted to set out some important health and safety information for attendees to note. There is a long-running and lately more heightened risk to health and safety of elected representatives. As a council, there is an overarching responsibility to ensure that councillors are able to carry out their duties and responsibilities in a safe environment and without any risk of harassment, intimidation, or violence. Therefore, if any interruption is deemed as a risk to the health and safety of the attendees, security will immediately take reasonable action to eliminate the risk and remove the individual from the meeting room. There will be no risk taken to preserve the safety of attendees, and I ask that attendees note this information. If any issues arise, I will explain the procedures. So now I move on to item 2, apologies for absences. I call upon the Chief Exec.
Mr. Mayor, apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Adamu, Councillor Inkaran, Councillor Opoku, Councillor Rossetti, Councillor Stennett, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Da Costa, and Councillor Emery.
Thank you. I now move on to agenda item 3, late items of urgent business. I call upon the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are 3 items of urgent business which could not be available earlier and which will need to be dealt with at this meeting. Items 8 and 10, which contain an update on the political composition and a report on appointments to outside bodies. These are late as there was a need to complete consultation with political groups. Item 14 contains the following late items. Annex 6, the MHCLG Exceptional Financial Support Letter, which was received after the publication of papers. A revised Annex 4, which corrects overstated council tax requirement. The correction has reduced the council tax requirement by £23,000, and therefore the final council tax increase for each of the bands A to H have changed marginally. And a budget amendment from the Liberal Democrat Group, Council Standing Order 15.8b, allows amendments to recommendations to be put forward by 10 a.m. on the day of the meeting.
Thank you. I accept these items as late business. Moving on to agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Under the council's agreed code of conduct, members are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest and prejudicial interest as defined by the code at any meeting and may not participate in any discussions of the matter and must withdraw from the meeting room. Details of the requirement to make a declaration of interest are shown on your printed summons at item 4. Would anyone like to declare an interest? I see Councillor Ibrahim.
Oh. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to declare, as it's budget for council, that I'm a full-time trade union representative for Unison in another borough, and as it's budget for council, this is relevant because of the staffing budgets involved.
Thank you, councillor. That is noted, and that is fine to continue with? It's fine to continue with. If there are no more declarations of interest, I will move on. Agenda item 5, declaration in relation to unpaid community charge or council tax liability. I call on the Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, may I remind members of the need to consider whether they need to make a declaration in accordance with Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 in relation to unpaid community charge or council tax liability, which is 2 months or more outstanding. This requirement is detailed in the council summons. Members to whom this applies must make a declaration if they are present at any part of the meeting and must not vote on any matter relating to the budget. It is not sufficient for such members to refrain from voting or to absent themselves from the chamber for particular parts of the meeting, and any failure to make a relevant declaration constitutes a criminal offence.
Thank you very much. I will continue on to agenda item 6, minutes of council meetings. I call on the Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask the council to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of November 2025.
Are they agreed? Okay. I will move on to item 7, Mayor's communication. As this is a budget meeting, the official Mayor's communication will happen on our meeting on the 16th. I'd just like to highlight the following events that I've been to, including the Holocaust Memorial Day, which many thanks to Councillor Peacock and Councillor Groskopf, as well as the memorial team for organising, and also for a whole set of iftars that we are currently going to. Thank you very much for them, but the full communication will be available on the 16th. Moving on to agenda item 8, report from the Chief Executive. I call on the Chief Executive.
The council has asked to note the committee's memberships and composition as a result of recent changes to political composition.
Thank you. I call on the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the recommendations set out at section 3.1, page 1 of the supplementary agenda pack are agreed.
Is that agreed? I don't think anyone's eaten today. Thank you. Agenda item 9, report of the monitoring officer. I call on the monitoring officer.
Mr. Mayor, I have no matters to report.
Thank you. I move on to agenda item 10, to make appointments to outside bodies. I call on the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move that the appointments to outside bodies as set out in the attached report at section 3.1 in the supplementary pack at page 13 be approved.
Is that agreed? There we go. Agenda item 11, review of council tax reduction scheme administration for 2026-27. I call on Councillor Chandwani to move the report together with any recommendation it contains. You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This paper is to request approval to make no changes to the council tax reduction scheme, also known as CTRS. We will still continue to help residents with up to 100% discount to pensioners, up to 100% discount to people who have disabilities, up to 100% discount to people on from low-income families with children, and all other residents in low-income households. We will discount them up to a maximum of 80.2%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If there are any questions on the report, please can they be brief? Are there any questions? I don't see any hands. Are the recommendations at page 22 of the agenda pack agreed? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, report from Cabinet, General Purposes Committee and Audit Committee. We have 4 reports to consider as part of this item, 2 reports from Cabinet, a report from General Purposes Committee and a report from the Audit Committee. I first call on Councillor Williams, Cabinet Member for Housing and Planning and Deputy Leader, to move her report on the housing revenue account. You have 5 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our housing budget is responding to London's housing crisis and getting the basics right for council tenants across the borough. Now, everyone should be able to live in a home that is affordable, safe, warm and comfortable. And we know that the housing crisis has driven up rents and driven down standards in many areas. But we are building social and affordable housing in Haringey, new council homes and very excitingly new key worker homes, and renovating thousands of the council homes we already have. I think we've built more than 1,000 homes since 2020. I think the number we're on as of today is 1,322. And we have another, whatever 3,000 take away 1,322 is on site and planning permission or starts on site, all ready to be built by 2031. But additionally to that, it's not just new homes. We know that the existing council homes that people live in are not all up to standard and suffer extensive repairs, which really need the major works to go in. So we're delighted that we've now got a £570 million estate renovation plan to refurbish thousands of homes over the next 10 years and also do a lot of communal works on our estates. This is how we're investing in our local housing budget, building and maintaining affordable, great quality homes for more and more of our local residents. To name just a few things that the estate renovation plan will invest in, it's going to renovate kitchens and bathrooms. We're going to get better insulation, keeping homes warmer and cutting the cost of heating, bringing homes up to Energy Performance Certification B standard. We're going to have more efficient boilers, again, cutting the cost of heating, invest in CCTV, fob access and other safety measures around buildings. But of course, like all budgets, our housing revenue account has felt the impact of high interest rates over recent years, and the cost to repair, renovate and build, as we know, has gone up over the most recent few years. So we do take a series of measures to make sure the budget is in a strong footing for the long term, because our absolute priority is to make sure that every measure is taken to maximise affordable, high quality homes for our residents.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions on the report? No? Please can we approve the recommendations set out on page 250 of the main pack? Is that approved? Thank you. I next call on Councillor Carlin, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services, to move her report on capital strategy. You have 5 minutes, Councillor. Your mic's not on.
Our capital budget sets out the public investment, the capital that we're making in local public infrastructure, our parks, our roads, our leisure centres, libraries, and much more. You will note from the report that our capital strategy is to be focused, to be flexible, and to be financially sustainable. We will prioritise investments that deliver revenue or income generation. Our capital programme is under constant review, and we will maximise external finance wherever possible and minimise the amount of borrowing that we need to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions on the report? No. Please can we approve the recommendations set out on page 276 of the main pack? Is that approved? Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on. I call on Councillor Johnson, Chair of the General Purposes Committee, to move her report on the annual pay policy. Councillor, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As there are no substantive changes from last year, I think I will simply say I move the report and the recommendations. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Councillor. Very concise. Are there any questions on this report? No. Are there recommendations on page 333 agreed? I next call on Councillor Dolgan to move his report on the Treasury Management Statement. You have 5 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to formally move the Treasury Management Strategy Statement 2026 and 2027 and its recommendations, which are set out in the report to the full council. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions on this report? Nope. Thank you. Has this been agreed as well? Thank you. The recommendations on the Treasury Management Strategy appear under the budget item 14 when it will be later decided on. Moving on to agenda item 12, we have no deputations. Have I missed something? Oh, sorry. So agenda item 13, deputations and petitions. We have received no deputations or petitions in relation to the budget. So moving on to agenda item 14, I will start by asking the monitoring officer to give the meeting some advice in respect to the voting requirements for budget votes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Local Authorities Standing Orders England Amendment Regulations 2014 and the Council's Standing Orders require the Council to record in the minutes how each councillor voted, including any abstentions, when determining the Council's budget and the level of council tax to be levied. The only requirement is to record in the minutes of the meeting how each member voted. Given there is one amendment and a substantive motion to be voted on, it could be recorded in the minutes of the meeting how each member voted, including any who have abstained, by a show of hands.
Thank you very much. Can I therefore ask that the advice is noted and acted on when we come to the voting on this item, including the amendment? Is that agreed? I will now set out the process for considering this item, which will be as follows. I will firstly call upon the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services, Councillor Carlin, to introduce the report and move the recommendation contained at page 352 to 353 of the agenda pack. This is section 3.1, recommendations A to M, and up to 15 minutes will be allowed for this. This will then be seconded by the leader of the council, who will have 5 minutes. I have received notice of one amendment to the budget from the Liberal Democrats group. The amendment from the Liberal Democrats group will then be moved by Councillor Corley Harrison, who has up to 5 minutes, and then seconded by Councillor Connor, who has up to 3 minutes. In accordance with SCO 15.6 CII, the Green Socialist Alliance leader will have up to 2 minutes to also respond to the budget speech. There will then be a debate. The debate will be up to 45 minutes and members will be asked to keep their contributions to 3 minutes only. At the conclusion of the debate, Councillor Corley Harrison will respond for up to 3.5 minutes, followed by Councillor Carlin, summing up for up to 10 minutes. The council will then vote on the amendment before moving to the substantial motion. Okay, we will now start this motion. Councillor Carlin, please introduce the report. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. The budget proposed this evening continues to support and improve council services relied on by all those who live and work in the borough. To protect the most vulnerable and to maintain council assets for generations to come. I understand there may have been a bit of confusion by one of the opposing groups who seems to think that we're making swingeing cuts. I can assure you that's not what this budget says, which you may have found out if you had attended more meetings. In Haringey, we have a borough where life expectancy drops 8 years from west to east, where women hit age-related ill health at the age of 57 on the east of the borough. So the services that we provide are vitally important. While everything is considered, we will not make performative cuts that damage our borough and our residents in the longer term. The proposals in this budget have been carefully considered. They support and continue the improvements that we've made over the past 4 years. Our children's services are outstanding. Not only are they outstanding, but they're cost effective too. People ask me, how are you coping with the cost of send? They've read about this in the papers now. And my response is, we were in the safety valve pilot and we made it work. We're doing what the government is now proposing. We're putting provision into schools. We're putting and into new units in our borough. And that produces better outcomes and it saves us money. We already work with families to prevent children going into care, so they remain within the extended family unit. We know this is the best outcome for children, but also for us as a borough. It reduces the numbers placed in the care of private equity funded facilities. Our schools are 98% good or outstanding, with amongst the highest value added scores in the country. Our children's services show it's not about cutting funding. It's about working smarter, and then the finances will follow. And our children grow up to have better outcomes as successful adults and rely less on our services as they get older. In adult services, we're starting to see real improvements. Our Q3 report, which is going to be published today, shows the overspend in adults reducing over the course of the year. Again, working smarter, ensuring the NHS pays its dues and that the services we provide are good and give value for money. Councillor Dasnevs will go into that in more detail. On leisure, we could have taken the easy way to save a few bob, close our libraries, sell off the buildings, do the same with our leisure services. But once we lose those assets, they're gone. So instead, we need to maximize the income, and it's working. We invested in our libraries so they're no longer just receptacles of books. The room bookings are increasing quarter by quarter. Our library strategy will use libraries as important cultural and social hubs. We're investing in our leisure centres, and more people than ever are using them. I've been told Park Road is a real buzz. Again, raising income, becoming viable, not by cuts. And our parks and green spaces provide the vital outdoor space. Leisure, going out to use facilities for free. The health benefits extend into cost savings for our public services further down the line. And of course, housing. Building council homes and fixing the ones that we own, because a home is not just a roof over your head or an asset you can sell. It's your place in a community. And in a borough with about 40% living in the private rented sector, often in poor quality housing, and many of our tenants in homes that are too small, the stress of unsuitable housing has ongoing negative effects for both adults and children. Living in a secure and good home is about so much more than just housing. It gives that base for children to thrive, for adults to live good lives, and it creates stable neighbourhoods. And we're not just building council homes, we're building beautiful, award-winning, ecologically sustainable homes at speed, one of the largest council building authorities in the country. We're also putting in considerable capital over the next 10 years to bring our existing homes up to scratch. Our neighbourhoods are cleaner than ever. Fly tipping is removed within 48 hours. Our streets seem to be the best in North London. And I don't know about anybody else, but it's such a relief that our gutters are cleaned, and the flood prevention measures we put in place means that when it rains heavily, I'm no longer worried about whether my neighbourhood is going to flood. Investing where it matters, where it makes a difference. We will continue our climate and air quality goals as well, creating more cool streets and increasing tree planting, because climate justice is justice. Within the council, we're seeing the effect of the work being done to drive down spending. Our numbers of agency staff used to be an outlier in London. We're now well below the London average. All non-essential spend over £1,000 goes to a spend control panel. All recruitment is scrutinised. Do we actually need those posts? Of course, there's more to do, but this is about being strategic. We need not just to reduce spending, but in some cases to put in investment so we can realise income growth. We will keep our capital programme and any borrowing under constant review. Do we have to do this? Do we need to do it now? Is there any way we can do it cheaper? Given our financial position, we're acutely aware of the need to limit borrowing.
And we're so pleased that this government has gone back to including deprivation, including housing costs, in the formula for local government finance. Had this been the case for the past 15 years, we would not be in the position that we're in now. It was never going to be possible to overturn 15 years of austerity in a couple of years. But the increase in government funding we will receive over the next 3 years, with 17 million extra and an additional 25 million by year 3, goes some way towards helping us to regain financial sustainability. We will be, I'm afraid, one of 35 councils this year that requires exceptional financial support in order to close this 26-27 budget. This has been provisionally agreed. We spend about, and we must not forget, around 75% of our service budget on adult social care, children's social care, and temporary accommodation, statutory services. It's very encouraging that the overspend that was predicted for the financial year has reduced from 35 million in Q1 to a predicted 19 million in Q3 without the full use of a contingency reserves. There's been a decrease in the overspend in both adult social care and temporary accommodation. This will have an effect on the amount of EFS that we will require both for the financial year that we're in and for the year 26-27. We are working strategically towards a sustainable financial outcome in the medium term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Ahmed, Leader of the Council, to second the recommendation. Councillor Ahmed, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies in advance because there's going to be lots of repetition tonight. I'm really proud that we are proposing a budget today in line with our values to deliver a fairer, greener Haringey. And I'd like to thank Councillor Carlin, who has done a fantastic job in leading the council through this budget process, along with our Director of Finance, Taryn Eves. We've achieved such a lot over the 4 years, and there's still more to do on this journey. 15 years of austerity still hangs over us. Since 2010, we have lost £143 million in funding. And this legacy has left councils like ours picking up the pieces of years of underfunding. I have been absolutely clear that we need to protect the frontline services our residents rely on. And this budget is about choices. We continue to see increasing demand and costs of social care and temporary accommodation. And finding savings after years of cuts is not easy, but we have continued to make efficiency savings to protect the front line. We've worked hard locally to make sure this reflects our values here in Haringey, and we've made the case strongly to government, who have now given us an additional funding of £35 million over the next 3 years, and we will continue to make the case for a more sustainable funding settlement. The Fair Funding Settlement recognise that we have been historically underfunded and is now starting to address this. The additional money is very welcome, as are reforms for the private rented sector, funding for breakfast clubs and Pride in Place funding. My administration has rolled up its sleeves and ensured that we run a progressive, radical and collaborative council and are putting our values in action through investment in the services our residents rely on. This budget invests £222.9 million on adults and children's social care, supporting those residents who need help in some of the most challenging times of their lives. And our recent outstanding rating from Ofsted it's hard to say without getting emotional. Shows the difference this investment is making. We are making sure our young people have the best start in life. 98% of schools and nurseries good or outstanding. Special education needs provision outstanding. Alternative provision outstanding, and one of the best in the country. This budget invests £42.9 million on preventing and addressing the homelessness crisis, including ending the use of B&Bs as temporary accommodation for families. This is transformative for these residents and shows our administration putting social justice at the heart of what we do. This budget invests £4.7 million invested in our parks and green spaces. We are investing in our parks, which are a much loved and valuable asset for our communities. And by asking residents to help shape these plans, we are delivering on our pledge for participatory budgeting as part of the Haringey deal. We brought our leisure services back in-house and are investing and improving them. And next year we celebrate the Borough of Culture. Yay! You're eating into my time now, Ben. It invests 2.3 million on our libraries. We have kept all of our libraries open at a time when many other councils have had to close them. And this budget invests 34.4 million on supporting lower income residents with the cost of council tax, a lifeline to those struggling with the cost of living crisis. It invests in decent homes for our residents, 570 million over the next 10 years. And we are well on the way to building 3,000 council homes. And recently we were joined by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, at Wingspan Walk in Tottenham Hale, where we have already delivered 1,000 council homes. 272 just on that site, council homes at council rent. Only today, we were joined by the Deputy Mayor for London, Tom Copley, on West Green Road in St Anne's, where we celebrated 46 new council homes on that site. We have one of the biggest council house programmes in the country, and we can be proud of the difference this is making to our residents. But we aren't just building new homes, we are also invested in our existing council homes and estates. And in the next 3 years alone, we are set to improve over 14,500 homes. This budget also invests 37.8 million on recycling and waste to ensure we have clean streets. It also invests 16.1 million on concessionary fares, protecting the Freedom Pass for our older residents, which I know is a vital lifeline. Politics is about choice, and we have chosen to protect and defend the most vulnerable and stay true to our progressive values here in Haringey. I was born and raised in Haringey.
Sorry about that.
And as leader, I care about ensuring every pound we spent is well spent to improve the lives of our residents. So thank you for being on this journey, but it doesn't end here. There is more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon Councillor Corley Harrison. Can I ask that you move your amendment? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This budget is clearly not a recovery plan from the financial mess the council is in. It's a plan of managed decline, once again fiddling while Rome burns. When the current leader ousted the previous one, Labour as well, and selected her cabinet in 2021, we'd already been through a decade of austerity and the pandemic. And at that point, the council had been setting a balanced budget annually, spending within its means, and had a reserves balance of 28 million. In less than 5 years, this cabinet has overseen a decline requiring 84 million in exceptional financial support. This is the 4th highest requirement in England, the 2nd highest in London behind Croydon, a council that has declared itself bankrupt 3 times. That's an 84 million pound deficit covered through borrowing with interest rates so high we'll be paying back millions in financing costs over the coming years, on top of the tens of millions we're borrowing for this year and previous years. Now, those councillors who have not really delved into the finances of Haringey and other local authorities may believe what they're told by their Labour leadership, that all councils are going through this difficulty. Now, let me be clear, that's not the case. Only 10% of councils in England are having to go cap in hand to the government. We are not the norm. And of the 10% that are doing so, the vast majority have a transformation plan in place where their EFS borrowing peaks and then their borrowing comes down within the next few years. Haringey does not do that. This MTFS put before you tonight sees increased borrowing year on year on year to balance the books with no peak in sight. Our debt already stands at over 220% of income. We can't accept this lack of plan and borrow attitude to our finances. It's abundantly clear that all this highlights more strongly than ever that they are not only out of money, but this Labour group are out of ideas. And we're now in an unprecedented period of absence of political direction financially. Before you dismiss my words as just political spin, the theatre of full council, read the auditor's report, which Councillor Connor will reference. And of course, Labour will blame austerity, but as I mentioned, when this leader came in, we'd already had a decade of austerity, and we'd always retained financial control. Austerity hit Haringey as it did all local authorities, and it has clearly changed the dial. But unlike with other councils, this administration not only failed to react with the level of structural reform required to respond, but chose to borrow and spend like they had discovered the magic money tree. Instead of prudent staffing changes, just one such example we've listed in our amendment, which would have generated over £1 million in additional revenue based on your own finance officers. Conservative figures, I must say, they gave us others as well. They decided now was the right time to spend 70 million on those new shiny officers. The problem is, when an organisation has been under the same leadership for over 50 years, it becomes hard to see the wood for the trees. I sympathise. The existing ways of working become ingrained. Budget pressures lead to trying to slice savings around the existing setup, while continuing to deliver in the same way as before. It's understandable. But times have changed. That doesn't work. Other councils have realised it, but Haringey Labour have not. For years, they've continued to borrow despite our warnings. They've boasted about no new savings this year, despite interest rates rising, and year after year told us, just wait until we have a Labour government. Well, we have a Labour government now, don't we? And they have simply continued the Tories' austerity agenda, squeezing all those but the richest. And they have certainly not come to save the day for councils. I must say, I do admire Councillor Armett for pressuring the government for an increase in support here for Haringey. From the Fair Funding Review, well done. An extra 17 million for Haringey. At the same time, a lack of delivery on the actions from last year's budget means our in-year overspend is around the same figure, 17 million, 35 over 3 years. So I put it to you, if Haringey Council were created afresh today, would it be built to run the way that it currently does? Would the structures and delivery be as they are now? Would the culture be as it is now? Would we write a budget like this one? No, we wouldn't. If you're building a new council from the ground up, you'll build an organisation designed for now and for the future based around the budget that it has, delivering modern and efficient services, not try and drag decades-old ways of working through it on reduced budgets. But Labour has been in charge for too long to switch to that mindset. We know this because they've had every opportunity to do so, and they have not. The parallels with a Rishi Sunak-led Conservative Party towards the long overstaying government are clear. A party out of ideas and floundering. So it's clearly time.
Finish your sentence.
I will. It's clearly time for a fresh start, and hopefully that will come before not too long. For our finances, a fresh start of ideas and a fresh start with a Lib Dem administration.
I now call on Councillor Connor. Can I ask that you second the amendment? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as I second our amendment to the budget, I want to emphasise that they represent a sensible and necessary approach to restoring this council's financial stability. I recognise the council's adoption of our previous amendments in 25-26 to provide quarterly financial updates to the council scrutiny panels, which I'm very grateful for. As Chair of Budget Scrutiny, I also urge the Council to strengthen oversight further through better sharing of relevant information between Audit and the Overviewing Scrutiny Committee. Good governance depends on transparency and a joined-up approach. During this year's budget scrutiny process, we were deeply concerned by the scale of the Council's deteriorating financial position. Exceptional financial support is projected to reach 84 million by 26-27. Haringey's EFS requirement for 26-27, as my colleague has already mentioned, is the 4th highest in England. This budget gap of £84 million rises to a cumulative gap of £323 million in the papers by 2031. That's £323 million gap in our budget. Financing costs alone are forecast around 10 million for this coming year, while reserves have fallen to a shocking low. There are no available use of reserves to contribute to the balance in the budget for 26-27. I think that's unprecedented. This increasing debt reduces the resources available for services such as libraries, leisure centres and community provision. Most concerning of all, the Council's external auditors continue to identify significant value for money risks that have remained unresolved for years. Weaknesses in cost setting and budget processes, in identification and monitoring of cost saving schemes, in procurement arrangements, in the management of the commercial property portfolio, and now in the forecasting and management of social care spend and the recovery of social care income. Against that backdrop, I'm pleased to recommend our practical amendments that directly address these risks. One of these is the establishment of a contract overview, oversight and review board chaired by the Section 151 officer to scrutinise all contracts over 100,000. This would ensure contracts are delivered on time, aligned with their business case and properly monitored for performance and cost control. It would also strengthen future procurement and restore confidence that public money is being spent wisely. The reality is stark. Spiralling debt, rising repayment costs and persistently weak oversight place this council in a precarious position. We must confront these risks honestly and act decisively. These Liberal Democrat amendments are practical, proportionate and focused on financial sustainability. I urge the council to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Collette, can I ask you to respond to the budget speech? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Austerity measures over 15 years have brought Haringey to its knees. A Labour government has not alleviated the struggle. The Fairer Funding Review has done little to fill the gaps. Despite valiant attempts at efficiency saving, we have a forecasted deficit of at least 57 million, with the potential for this to rise. We recognise the importance of 75% of the budget spent on children's services, adult social care and temporary accommodation, but this leaves our discretionary services deeply vulnerable. More over 65s, an increasing number of residents are seeking support from the Council for adult social services and temporary accommodation. The budget is untenable and residents are seriously concerned about the impact of the budget cuts on services and criticise the Council's administrative handling of housing and service efficiency. Our scrutiny panel have highlighted the risks of service providers raising costs above inflationary rates. Our reliance on exceptional financial support creates further chaos. The Section 151 officer noting that the level of debt and interest from EFS is too high and does not provide value for money. Borrowing at interest rate tied to market rates, the overall cost of borrowing is not a prefixed low interest government subsidy, but rather a higher than normal commercial rate. This support has been described by local authority leaders as akin to payday loans for councils. Ultimately, the collateral for EFS is our capital resources. EFS is not a cheap fixed rate grant, but rather an expensive borrowing permission designed to avoid immediate bankruptcy. Haringey is heading for a 114 notice. Members elected on the back of defeating the HDV by reliance on the EFS put our council assets.
Councillor, that's time. Finish your sentence.
Put our council assets up as collateral as we head for bankruptcy.
Thank you, Councillor. There will now be a debate on the item for a period of up to 45 minutes. Each member wishing to speak will only have 3 minutes. I first call upon Councillor Abella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My favourite political mantra is this: don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. A budget is a financial mirror. It shows who you really are and where your priorities lie. And when I look at this budget, I see a Labour administration that, when faced with significant cost pressure, still made a deliberate decision to prioritise clean air and climate resilience. This budget speaks for itself. We're investing 4.7 million in the lungs of our borough, the parks and green spaces where we rest and recharge, and our rapidly growing canopy of 38,000 trees. And if anyone is surprised by the scale of this ambition, they haven't been paying attention. In the past 4 years alone, we've planted 6,000 new trees, 18 wildflower meadows, and 6 more forests across the borough. And we want to take the whole community with us on this journey to make Haringey a greener borough. That's why over the past year, we've been trialling participatory budgeting, because people who use their local park should have a say in how money in their park is spent in their park. It's also why we've decided to allocate another £300,000 for community groups to implement their own projects to protect the climate. And when they do so, they'll join the community-owned Antwerp Arms Pub, which has used this fund to install new photovoltaic panels. They'll join the Cypriot Community Centre, which now has new climate-friendly LED lighting. And my personal favourite, the Haringey Women's Football Club, who've launched an initiative to give pre-loved football boots a second home. Now, of course, climate resilience begins where we live our lives, on our streets. That's why we've expanded our school streets from just 4 years ago, to 37, guaranteeing clean air for 16,000 local children as they walk into the school gate. It's also why we're making it easier for residents to walk and cycle to their destinations and for motorists to make the switch to an electric vehicle. In the past 4 years alone, we've made 300 new bike hangers available, and we've installed 200 new electric vehicle chargers. But we're not stopping there. Haringey Labour will match and exceed both these numbers if residents give us a mandate to lead Haringey Council for another 4 years. And I know many keen cyclists will welcome our pledge to roll out a network of segregated cycle lanes so that they can cycle safely through our busy main roads. Mr. Mayor, on the 7th of May, residents in Haringey won't have to guess where we stand on protecting the climate. Our budget proves that we are who we say we are. Because it's not enough to claim the badge of an environmentalist. You have to put your money where your mouth is. Budgets tell the truth. This budget says Haringey Labour is investing in clean air, green spaces, and making residents part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Isla Gosling. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question I would like to ask tonight is this. What would a responsible person do if they realised that they were spending beyond their means? The logic would dictate that they would be tightening their belts, reducing any perks and luxuries, and ensuring that their money is saved for the essentials. As we've heard tonight from others, the scale of the build-up of debt under this administration is frightening. Much of this debt could have been avoided, as we all know, but the failure by this administration to tighten its own belts and set the tone speaks volumes. We have been saying to you for many years now that you need to rein in your some of the expenses that what could only be described as frivolous, write down and lead by example. But sadly, you refuse. Instead, we continue to borrow money year on year and paying interest on borrowing too, and on what? Okay, now, what is essential for our residents and communities? Of course. But what about a brand new electric car and a chauffeur? What about extra catering? Elaborate office spaces for the leadership? Propaganda on YouTube videos that barely get past double digit in views? Really? At least this year, you finally have cut Haringey people down, but surely it's time to drop it entirely because not one resident really wants it. Now, if you're serious about protecting the services that actually matter to residents, then set the tone. Lead by example. It means avoiding wasteful PR activities and instead sending a clearer message. Haringey is serious about making changes and planning for the future. We are not asking for cuts that hurt people. We're asking for cuts that remove our own luxuries. Let's cut the deficit. Let's cut that particular deficit. Let's start addressing that debt elephant in the room, and let's make sure our focus is on getting the best frontline services and giving something back to those households facing real hardship. If we do this work now, honestly and openly, we will restore confidence and ensure that future budgets reflect our real priorities. We need responsible governance led by people who put residents before politicians. That's what our community needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor White. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've sat on Overview and Scrutiny Committee alongside Councillor Connor for the last 5 years, and we've spent a lot of time, particularly in recent years, looking at the budget. I think it's clear that what we haven't seen as the cause of the current difficulties that we find is financial mismanagement. What we're seeing is massive increase in the demands on our statutory demand-led services, massive increase in the prices, and that's a double whammy that's hitting us from two sides that's making it very, very difficult for us to balance the books. I wanted to focus a little bit on something that I have really been noticing, both in there and in my day-to-day life as I started looking. So much of our public infrastructure, whether, you know, that includes the care homes that we use for social care, the children's homes, they've not just been privatised over the years, they're now owned, at least in part, by overseas investors, by private equity, by sovereign wealth funds. And that means that of the money that we're spending locally, it's disappearing not just from the public sector, but it's disappearing out of the British economy entirely into the pockets of the super rich who are owners of these private equity, sovereign wealth funds, etc., and in their tax havens. So it's not surprising, with all that money leaking out of the public sector and out of the national economy as a whole, that it becomes more financially challenging for us to deliver public services. And when the same phenomenon of global investors owning our national infrastructure is repeated everywhere in the economy, supermarkets, bookshops, water companies I spoke about before, it's not surprising that people are also getting poorer, which hits the other end of this double whammy. So we hear a lot about tough choices politically these days, and when money's this tight, all choices are tough. Here's some of the choices that this Labour administration have made. We've chosen to invest £18.5 million in our parks, chosen to keep all our libraries open. We've chosen to focus on our children's services, and it's now rated as outstanding. We've chosen to help over 7,000 residents through the Haringey Support Fund. We've chosen to help 25,000 residents through the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. We're investing £570 million in improving and repairing our existing council homes, and best of all, we've built already 1,300 beautiful new council homes at council rents, with 2,000 more on the way. And I'm proud to be a member of a Haringey Labour administration that, when times are tough, it makes the difficult choice to prioritise policies that help those that are most in need in our borough, and most important, continues to build the council homes that will provide Haringey residents with the homes they can afford, hopefully for generations to come.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Brabazon. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say one more time, children's services is outstanding. I was just listening quite aghast to some of the comments from the Liberals and the Green Socialist Alliance. I thought I was listening to Mrs. Thatcher, because we're socialists on this side of the council, and we actually believe in investing money in public services, not making cuts and not believing in this type of austerity which you seem to be favouring. Who could oppose? Who could oppose investing money in a youth club in Wood Green and keeping it open? Well, obviously the Green Socialist Alliance, because you think we should make sure that we only spend according to what we have. Who could oppose £50 million spent on school buildings over the last 4 years in schools across the borough? Maintained schools, not academies, but community schools that this council supports through all sorts of investment, and we have spent millions on roofs, windows, heating, solar, and all the rest of it. Pendarren. Anybody here think we should close Pendarren? Do you think so over there? I don't think so. But where's the money coming from? We have had to borrow because of years of austerity, and we know which parties supported austerity in the coalition, as we say it every time, and to remind you about 2010, and now we think the Green Socialist Alliance appears to support it as well. Special needs is the hugest domestic issue in this country, and this council has now spent we're spending 12 million on adapting school sites so that children with special needs can go to school in the borough. I don't think any of you oppose that, do you? 118 new places. We've just opened the new building at the Brook. That cost 1.8 million. We've opened the base at Earlsmead. We're opening the new SEMH base at Alexandra Primary, and we will be converting St Mary's infants for older students with social and emotional concerns, and we'll be doing some work at Fortismere for secondary students with autism. But none of that comes cheap, and the money comes from somewhere. Luckily, a lot of that has come from the government, but the council has reconfigured all its special needs through the high needs block, which is part of this budget making process. And I make no apology at all for our spending the money. I think John Maynard Keynes, he said you should spend money digging a hole in the ground, didn't he? In the 30s, in the Depression, and Keynes was right. And now we are spending money in our borough, on our infrastructure, on our schools, on our young people, on children, on families. So I think we have done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Mason. You have 3 minutes.
Thanks a lot. You can start the countdown. Slight misinterpretation of Keynes, but we can discuss that later. Haringey is a borough for all of us. Producing a budget which promises little more than further debt does create problems. Let's admit it. Not because no one here cares, not because no one here wants to provide good services, but because we're trying to balance a budget while showing off the last of our crown jewels, while struggling and to support a government which has rejected a fair deal for working class and poor people. The largest number of people earning below the living wage has increased in Haringey. People living in unsuitable and temporary accommodation, whether or not they're on the long waiting list, have increased. Let me tell you about Rose. She's 64. She had to leave work 2 years ago because of cancer. Her breast had been removed, and she has been in treatment since. She has diabetes, high blood pressure, and depression. She approached the council for accommodation and was placed in temporary accommodation until she was assessed as a non-priority need. She appealed this, and the appeal was refused. Meanwhile, she was sent or given the number of a hotel. The hotel, you have to pay each week for food. She has diabetes, and she is forced to only have chips and chicken every night for food, and then some toast in the morning. So she cannot eat because of her health. She has no cooking equipment and shares a bathroom. She cannot get legal help and can't even get into the CAB because they have had to reduce their services. She came to our food bank with a pile of long letters and asked for help to understand them. I know you know that this happens. I just need to know that you care enough about Rose and those other people to be inclusive around them. And don't pull a face, Karai, that's silly. It's just childish. Councillor Carlin, you say everyone should be able to live in a home which is safe and affordable, but why not Rose and those like her who can't jump the legal hoops placed in front of them? We failed her and failed to provide community-based support, including advice, offering early help for those who need it, without shame and without intricate legal manoeuvres. Our duty is to fairness, to listen to all our citizens and to challenge the government, in this case a Labour government, who must be ready to give a fair deal to our people. We are living in a borough which is the 4th poorest in London. We are living in a country which is the 6th richest in the world. We can sigh, we can say, what can we do? But the fact is, we can do so much more if we focus on those people who need our help most, and we focus on getting a fair deal from this government.
Thank you, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Dunstall.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we look to agree our budget for the forthcoming year, just 66 days from the Haringey residents going to the polls in this year's local elections, I'm struck by the great strides this Labour Council has made in the last 4 years. In spite of a continued and repeated assault by successive Liberal Democrat and Conservative governments who cut a staggering 143 million from Haringey's budget between 2010 and 2024, this Labour Council has consistently managed to prioritise frontline services, including adult social care, children's social care, which I'm reliably informed was outstanding, was awarded outstanding last week, and our housing and homelessness services, all critical and statutory provision for the most vulnerable residents in our borough, supporting them to remain housed, connected and avoid crisis. Evidence of what consistent, stable and values-led local government can achieve. Last week, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government released their latest homelessness statistics. Sadly, they make for bleak reading. A 96% increase in rough sleeping from 2021 and an 18% increase on the previous year. Overall, council spending on temporary accommodation has risen by a staggering 25% in a year to 2.8 billion, with nightly paid and emergency B&Bs accounting for over 1 billion of that. Yet further evidence that 14 years of Tory Lib Dem austerity cannot be magicked away in 18 months of a new administration. However, I'm delighted to say that Haringey is bucking this trend, and significantly so. Against this backdrop, this Labour Council is ending the use of B&Bs and hotels entirely, reducing the financial burden and improving accommodation for households. It has also already reduced rough sleeping in the borough by 46%. We've invested nearly £43 million in services which tackle the housing crisis and prevent homelessness occurring in the first instance, and will be launching a new homelessness prevention hub so that residents can access quality and specialist face-to-face housing advice and support. We know there is more to do. One person sleeping on the streets of our borough is too many, but this progress speaks for itself. And with increased council funding of over 35 million over the next 3 years from the Labour government, I know that it is only a Labour-run council that has the courage, commitment and expertise to do the job.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Des Nevis. You have 3 minutes.
When in 1798, Tottenham activist Priscilla Wakefield created the Female Benefit Club, probably the first building society, she and others knew about the importance of pennies and pounds and what impact they had on families. What, I hear you say, has that got to do with the big numbers in their millions we're talking about tonight? Yes, there are big numbers here. For adult social care, care packages, driven by demand, inflation, and yes, history hasn't helped us as we suffered years of Tory and Liberal Democrat sponsored austerity. And there are some figures here that look smaller and are still pretty impactful. They'll fund innovative substance misuse services, support mental well-being, tackle the commercial determinants of health, like smoking and gambling harms. But what of the slightly smaller numbers? Priscilla might remind us that every pound matters to communities. In Haringey, there are some amazing and impactful things we fund, the quiet heroes of this budget.
Funding for the carers coffee morning that has doubled under this administration and continues to support activities for people who really need them. Our wellbeing walks that take place across the borough. Who knows how many steps have been taken, but we know that on more than 5,000 occasions, residents have walked, connected and shared a moment. And there's seated exercise classes, singing for the brain, creative community and craft groups of all kinds, women's health events and more. These silent heroes create small moments that can have big impact on people's everyday lives. They are pounds in a bank of care and understanding that represent our collective endeavour. A focus on residents' everyday well-being and everyday experience. They bring hope, they bring joy, they bring connection. They are the power of a Labour administration living its values every day with the people we serve. And I, for one, think they deserve to be celebrated.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I call upon Councillor Bonds. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's all very well tonight for Labour councillors to congratulate themselves in the run-up to the local elections in May, to congratulate themselves on borrowing millions of pounds. External pressures on this council are real and we need to be honest about them. It's kicking the can down the road. If something does not change, then in a few years' time, this council, whoever is in charge, will have no choice but to make massive service cuts under a Section 114. It is irresponsible to continue to borrow at this rate. It undermines our residents. It possibly leaves the vulnerable even more vulnerable than they already are. There are external pressures and we do need to be honest about them. So we do welcome the Labour government's attempts to deal with rogue landlords, for example. But changes to tenancy rules have had consequences, such as some landlords exiting the market. Our own housing officers have said that the Renters' Rights Act was the #1 reason for increased demand for temporary accommodation in the last year. And in the coming year, this demand is predicted to rise to the tune of another £19 million. Adult social care presents an even larger challenge. 2 years ago, the Labour Party won a landslide general election victory by promising change. Fairer cost sharing between individuals and the state, a sustainable funding formula, a long-term certainty for councils and providers. Care is a top Liberal Democrat priority too, and Ed Davey made it clear to the Prime Minister that we were ready to support Labour in delivering these reforms. So it came as something of a disappointment to see the government kicking adult social care reform into the long grass, rather like Labour is kicking a possible Section 114 into the long grass in Haringey. This Parliament is already a third gone, and with every passing year, our ageing population requires more care and, partly thanks to Labour's national insurance increase, the cost of employing care workers also increases. The only change Labour has actually delivered is to merge the social care grants with the main revenue support grants, helping to hide the inconvenient truth. Social care funding is not keeping up with the cost of social care provision. Our schools face a similar story. Liberal Democrats believe education is crucial for the futures of our young people, and we support the principle that better mainstream provision for students with special educational needs and disabilities will reduce the demand for expensive school places. So we welcome the tone of the government's recent announcements about SEND reform, but when the accompanying 1.6 billion is broken down across thousands of schools in England, that's just 1 extra teaching assistant per primary school and 2 per secondary. Over half of the schools run by Haringey Council are already in deficit.
That's time. Can you finish your sentence?
So I urge you to accept our amendment and put Haringey on the road to recovery before Labour takes us deeper into debt, before it celebrates its 60th year in control of Haringey.
Thank Thank you, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Jameson. You have 3 minutes.
So in Haringey, we have so many beautiful green spaces and parks. As much as we pride ourselves on our hugely successful council house building programmes, we as a council understand the absolute need for beautiful spaces freely available for all. Since 2022, this council has invested 18.5 million in parks and green spaces across the borough, allowing us to renovate 30 parks and playgrounds. In Bruce Castle Park in my ward, our 500-year-old oak tree has been repaired. In 2022, it had an old metal fence around it and a hollow space big enough for people to sit in, which they did, and it became a site for arson attacks, and on Christmas Day of all days. It needed a specialised natural repair with a bespoke oak door, so it took some time, but last year it was completed. Local user groups helped lay mulch around it. It now has a pleasant fence and is accessible to birds, bats and other wildlife. Also in my ward, £300,000 has been secured to improve the play area and Bruce Castle Park. The council, the ward councillors and the playground improvement group, made up of local parents and park lovers, have worked together to co-design the new playground. The Parks Project Officer confirmed the winning design last month, and the Bruce Castle Plain Zone planning application was submitted and validated last week. This play area is full of children from nearby Lancasterian and Risley after school. Lancasterian School has a special needs provision, and these needs have been considered in the design. Although we have improved 30 parks and play areas, we are always intent on doing more. As a council, we aim to make our parks and green spaces accessible for all. We have an inclusive children's park run on Sunday mornings in Lordship Rec. This is a very lovely event run by dedicated local people. The council values the input of all user groups and works with them to make our parks safe, well used and welcoming. My co-councillor, Councillor Ali, now Cabinet Member for Climate Action and the Environment, hosted a Haringey Climate Partnership event last Thursday, and it was clear that from the heat maps that we need more tree coverage in Haringey. This administration has planted 6,000 trees, mainly in the east of the borough, to increase canopy coverage. As well as the repair of the 500-year-old old oak tree, the tree planting and the playground redevelopment, Bruce Castle also boasts other green spaces such as Tottenham Cemetery, which is a Grade 1 site of important natural conservation. A beautiful green space with an active friends group who keep a watchful eye and use their extensive expertise to collaborate with the council and the subcontractor to keep this space beautiful and looked after. This council knows how its residents need, value and appreciate our green spaces. We understand their value in maintaining healthy minds and bodies. With all this in mind, in the approved 2026-27 budget, there is 4.7 million on caring for our parks.
Councillor, that's time. Can you finish off your sentence?
Sorry, I was just going to invite you all to Clean Rivers on a Saturday, just to finish.
Thank you, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Small. You have 3 minutes.
I would like to tell you about a young lad in my ward in Hornsey. Let's call him Ali. I met Ali last year after an elderly neighbour brought him to our surgery. He was 17, barely looking up, shrinking in his hoodie, flipping his phone around in his hand, nervous and embarrassed. Embarrassed to ask for help. Embarrassed to tell me that he lives in a one-bedroom flat with his 2 parents and 3 siblings. That he sleeps every night in the lounge with his sisters, swapping between a small bed, a sofa and a mattress on the floor. Ali's never had a bedroom of his own, no desk to study for his GCSEs, no space to bring back his mates and just hang out. Heartbreakingly, in this room, we all know that Ali is not an exception. I could tell you about Zara from the Campsbourne estate, who does her college work under a phone torch at night not to wake her 2 younger sisters. Or Leslie, who shares a bedroom with her 12-year-old son. Let's call him Tom. These people are the housing crisis made real. A housing crisis that bites down hardest on the most vulnerable and the most exposed. And although we know we can't fix the national housing crisis alone, here in Haringey, we are giving it a blooming good try. In 2022, our Labour council leader, Councillor Ahmet, set this administration the bold target of delivering 3,000 new council homes by 2031. And just 4 years later, we have built 1,300 new homes, and we have another 2,000 already underway, 5 years ahead of target, making us one of the biggest council house building programmes in the country. We're not selling 1,200 council homes like the Greens in Bristol, we're building them. We're building them for families like Alex. Nor have we forgotten our existing council tenants. That's why our Deputy Leader, Councillor Williams, is delivering a £570 million investment to improve the comfort and quality of all 20,000 council homes in our borough. That's improvements in insulation, front doors, windows, kitchens, bathrooms, safety improvements, revamped communal spaces so that people can come together as the community they are. This is investment for young people like Zara. And let me finish with our work on temporary accommodation. Last week, under this Labour administration, we reached a major milestone in tackling homelessness, and we have ended the use of hotels and B&Bs for families in temporary accommodation. None of this was easy, none of it was inevitable, and none of it happened by accident. It is the consequence of political choices made by this Labour council, rooted in experience, stability, and frankly, a sheer stubborn-headedness to refuse to accept second best for our residents. So yes, in Haringey, we are fighting the housing crisis on all fronts, but we'll not let up. Because unlike the speech from the leader of the Liberal Democrats, which was only about spreadsheets and numbers, this Labour administration is about people. And we are fighting for Ali, for Zara, for Leslie, for Tom, and for every resident who deserves a decent place to rest their head and raise their family.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Corley Harrison. Can I ask you to respond? You have 3.5 minutes.
Thanks for the name check, Councillor Small. I mean, it's quite amazing that when my colleague here mentions cutting frivolous spending on things like, you know, brand new chauffeur-driven cars for your mayor, you know, as wonderful as he is, you laugh. You just laugh. As if it doesn't matter. And this is the problem, isn't it? This type of attitude is why we hear from so many residents on the doors that politicians are all the same when they're in charge. They just put themselves first. I wonder if they'll get a chauffeur-driven car to visit council homes with residents staying up all night long, to bail water out, coming through their roof for months on end, ignored by Haringey. Or residents with extensive damp and mould in their flat because when a water patch appears on their wall, because the gutters are overflowing, Haringey ignores it. Let black mould grow. But more than that, the fact so many Labour councillors are commending a budget with the fourth biggest deficit in the country astonishes me. I thought at least one councillor in the Labour benches would recognise just what a hole Haringey is in and continues to dig. At some points tonight, I was confused which side of the chamber the Green Party was on, because I think the Labour Party are being led by the school of Zach Polanski economics at the moment. Let's remember, not long ago, he said the country should just stop paying back the debt it owes because it's not real. Is Haringey's debt not real? I wonder how many in this room realise that the council's independent auditors have warned that if the budget continues to proceed in this direction, they expect to consider issuing a statutory recommendation. Unprecedented. Congratulating yourselves over a reduction in overspend of 35 million to 19 million, Councillor Carlin. You let it get to 35 million in 1 quarter. You're acting like you've saved 16 million. You haven't saved 16 million. You're 19 million overspend. That's on top of the EFS borrowing already, I should say. This is a budget with its head in the clouds. And I'm at a loss. The lead cabinet member's introduction just reaffirms that. And I can't work out now, based on the speeches given tonight, whether you are deliberately pouring petrol on the fire before you say goodbye and you've given up, and you're leaving someone else to put the fire out and pick up the pieces, or you do not genuinely understand the financial situation that you're putting all of our residents in and the jeopardy you're putting in their lives. So I hope you reflect. Great work that you're all doing. We'll come back in 4 years' time and we'll see just how much is left after we're spending half of our budget repaying the interest on the loans that you're currently borrowing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carlin, you now have up to 10 minutes to respond to the debate.
I'm really quite taken aback by the complete lack of understanding of a budget by the party opposite. At no point in time have we ever said that we're relaxed about the fact that we are in receipt of EFS to close the budget. At no point in time have we said that work isn't going on across the council to actually reduce our spend. But the point is, what we're not prepared to do is actually to make cuts that damage our residents and damage the borough, because in the long term, that's not going to save us any money. It's actually going to end up costing us more money. And the fact that the Liberal Democrats actually come, the architects of austerity, the reason that we lost £143 million because the Liberal Democrats were in charge of local government when they changed the funding formula to take deprivation out. The fact that you come and make these assumptions does really make me worry about what would happen if the Liberal Democrats, God forbid, ever did become the party in charge of this council. And the reason for that is, what would you cut? Because when I look at your proposals...
Hold on. Hold on, Councillor, hold on. Can you pause the clock, please? Now, during your speeches, there was barely any heckling. There is too much heckling happening for this speech. I can barely hear what Councillor Carlin is saying. It has to stop right now so we can hear what Councillor Carlin is actually going to say.
When I look at your proposals, there's nothing really in them. You've got a few performative cuts, like cut Haringey people, what, a few £1,000s? There's no strategic long-term vision. And this is what's really worrying, because what would you do? What political choices would you make? Well, we've got a good idea. You would close the libraries. You would sell off the leisure centres, because when we're spending 75 to 80% of our service budget on adult social care, children's social care and temporary accommodation, when the amount of discretionary spend is so low, what you're talking about is closing our youth services. What you're talking about is closing our libraries. What you're talking about is making those damaging cuts to our borough, because where else would you find them? And this is not strategic. What we are doing is not looking at annual cuts year by year. And you don't seem to not understand what a budget is. When I said that the purported overspend had gone down over the year, it's not that it was overspent by that amount in the first quarter. That's what's projected for the year. And that is reducing over the course of the year because of the money-saving measures that we're putting in place. And so that is important, because it means that in terms of EFS, when we go forward to next year, we have an agreement for X amount of EFS, but it doesn't mean that we have to spend it. And we're starting to see those services go in the right direction. in terms of capital, in terms of borrowing, I completely agree with you. We can't borrow money. We can't borrow our way out of this. We have to strategically look at the medium term to make sure that we are financially sustainable. So I'm just a little bit puzzled by your response, and also a little bit puzzled by the Green response, because you do seem to be in favour of austerity. But then that's not necessarily surprising, because we know what happens when Greens are in office. We've seen it in Bristol. We saw Bristol cancel their entire council house building programme, and we saw Bristol is selling off council houses. And the latest is that Bristol has actually said that in private development, there's no longer a need for any affordable accommodation at all. So that's what happens when we have the opposition groups in power, because the austerity cuts that were foisted on the country by the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition in 2010, 2015, and I will say it again, meant that boroughs like Haringey, with high levels of deprivation, when you took that deprivation out of the formula, we lost more in government grants than other boroughs. We lost 55%. And in Haringey, that meant taking difficult decisions, and it's led directly to where we are now, because those decisions eventually come home to roost. And most of the proposals that you've put forward are already being done and are being considered. And the others, what I would term performative cuts. They don't really save much money at all. They just say that you're thinking or scrabbling around to try and find something. And yes, finances are tight. We all know that finances are tight. But what it means is we have to be smarter. We have to do what we've done in children's. We have to do what we're seeing being done in adults. Our capital program needs to be flexible. We have to look at where we invest, and we have to look at where we cut. And it's not easy. And setting budgets is not easy. And it's not something that we don't do with a lot of thought. But these are political decisions that we take to protect our residents, to protect our borough. Because Haringey has already done the things that lots of other boroughs are considering. When you hear other boroughs closing children's centres, we close them. When you've heard other boroughs closing adult centres, we close them. And arguably, did that make our borough stronger, or did it make it weaker? That's a question. But we've already done those things in Haringey because of the cuts that we've seen. The government has given us a 3-year settlement. It's a much better settlement than initially thought, and we're getting an additional £17 million this year, and by year 3 an additional 25. And in that time, plus any council tax increases, in that time, we in the next 3 years have to look at the medium-term horizon to ensure that we are financially sustainable. And that is for all our residents, but we are not prepared to make performative cuts. We need to use the certainty to ensure financial sustainability over the medium term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We will now vote on the amendment as outlined in the tabled papers in respect to Amendment 1. Can I get a show of hands? All those in favour? All those against? And any abstentions? The amendment is not agreed, therefore the amendment is lost. In respect of the substantive recommendations contained at page 352 to 353 of the agenda pack, this is section 3.1 of the main report, items A to M, and also taking into account the updated council tax resolution at Annex 4 in the tabled pack at page 3, and further noting the subsequent updated information at paragraph 8.6 of the main council report, also set out page 1 of the tabled pack. Is the main motion, all those in favor of that, the main motion, the original motion? All those against? Any abstentions? Abstentions. The amendment is agreed. The recommendations are agreed. That now concludes the business on the agenda. Thank you very much.